Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of what is our Arsenal news show. Joining you every morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. Thank you as always for tuning in and making this a part of your morning routines. It is very much appreciated. I hope you had a good week. You've made it to Friday. Good news. I know I need it. I'm going to be very honest with you. It's been a very, very challenging week indeed. Stuff going on, feeling a bit burnt out. Lots of kind of things going on in the background as well. And it's made for kind of a very challenging week. But we've made it to the end. We've made it to Friday. And yeah, I'm hoping that a very positive result tomorrow against Bournemouth in the Premier League is going to be just what the doctor ordered. We will be hearing from Mikel Arteta a little bit later on this morning and hearing from him ahead of that game to get some team news. That's going to mean that this show is going to be slightly shortened as well, because we'll be doing that press conference blog, which you can follow on the football.london website at around 1:30 this hour. But thank you to everybody that's tuned in. Really do appreciate your time. Drop a like, subscribe, all of that lovely stuff. Without further ado, let's jump into today's stories. Do go back yesterday if you've not given it a watch already, and watch our Eat, Sleep, Arsenal Repeat podcast. I was joined by Sophie and the Doc to talk more about our Carabao Cup victory. And we continued the debate around Ivan Toney and whether or not he's the right striker for Arsenal. So if you've got any thoughts on either of those two topics, certainly go back and give that a listen. I would encourage you to do so. It's the last live upload on the channel. So please do go give that a watch. Arsenal launched their new women's away 23-24 kit. I can't say I'm a fan. When I heard about the fact that there was going to be a dedicated away kit for the women's side, I got excited. So I was thinking, right, well, the men's away kit is terrible. So the yellow kit is pretty darn awful. So yeah, I was hoping that it was going to be something that I might like. I can't say I like it. I'm not a fan of it, and I really, really wanted to be. But yeah, I'm personally not a fan. I know I've got a couple of friends of mine who said they absolutely love it, but yeah, it's not my bag. It's probably fair to say. Neither is the yellow kit. So that's two Arsenal kits this season that sadly I won't be getting this season. I probably do prefer it to the yellow kit. That yellow kit is horrific. Yeah, I'm not. It's not my color. Light blue, baby blue is not really for me. The pink is fine. You know, I've got pink, but it's the light blue and like the effect on it. Yeah, I'm not a fan. But I know a lot of people do like it, as opposed to the yellow kit. So if you like it, go wear it and get hold of it, and I'm sure that you will. But yeah, it's not for me, this one. Yeah, goodness me. But there is good news in the women's team, with Katie McCabe close to signing a brand new contract with the club, according to David Ornstein. Katie, of course, was nominated for the Ballon d'Or, and at 28 years of age is in her prime years, and Arsenal will want to be keeping hold of her. So yes, fantastic news that Katie will be staying. It seems she's not yet signed that brand new deal, but she's indeed closing in on it. So positive news for Kate McCabe as well. Alex in the chat says, I hate to say it, Tom, but the yellow kit is growing on me. Hey, look, if we beat anybody of real note in it, it's going to change my mind as well. Adrien Rabiot has been linked with the club. This is a transfer story coming out of, wait for it, Italy in the last 24 hours. Yes, apologies that it potentially is maybe not the most reliable of places, but we have to talk about it. And yes, we will see more of these links accelerate as we edge closer to yet another transfer that feels like the last one only just closed. But a brand new transfer window is upon us in January. And that means as we get into the throes of October, that more links are going to be coming up. When we go into December, you of course get the continuation of the Arsenal transfer show on the channel, but we'll still be talking about transfer news here as and when it arrives. And yes, according to Calcio Mercato, there is there is this link at the moment to Adrien Rabiot, and he's a player that's been linked with Arsenal for a very, very long time indeed. Arsenal, Newcastle are said to be very interested in him. His contract expires at the end of this season, so maybe it's something they might look to try and take advantage of in January. He has been doing very, very well for Juventus. Last season, he got 8 goals and 4 assists in 32 Serie A games, 11 goals and 6 assists. That's 17 goal contributions in 48 games. He started off this season well as well. He's got he's got a goal and 2 assists in the first 6 games. He plays as a central midfielder. Could he be someone that adds depth and competition to the middle of the midfield? Maybe. I think there is obviously a lot of well-documented baggage that comes alongside Adrien Rabiot that's been well documented, but that was kind of towards the start of his career in his younger years. He's 28 years of age now, so he is obviously a lot more experienced in that role, in that position, but I would still be pretty surprised. FBref has him down as a very, very impressive player. He's in the 96th percentile for non-penalty goals for players in his position. It comes out really well in terms of progressive carries, 84th percentile, touched in the attacking penalty area, 93rd percentile, 84th percentile for assists. And then in defensive statistics, he comes out well too, 66 for tackles, 42 for interceptions, 60 for blocks, 82 for clearances, and 84 for aerial duels won. So he's a well-rounded central midfielder, and he comes out very well indeed in those areas. But I do think that, again, similar to the Tony situation, when it comes to kind of an age profile of 27, 28, I'd quite like to see Arsenal go out and get like a younger profile of player that's got a higher ceiling than these guys. And Arsenal have some experience in the midfield already with Jorginho, of course, and Partey too. So it depends on whether they're going to move on. But a central midfielder is certainly where my priority is when it comes to the transfers I'd like to see Arsenal take part in January. Now, I spoke to Emile Smith Rowe after the game against Brentford. I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to show this to you. We're going to jump over to the Arsenal Way YouTube channel, which, of course, is a fantastic site which I contribute to, which you can get all of your information, the press conferences, clips and stuff. So jumping over to the Arsenal, I'm hoping that this is going to play and that you can see it as well and hear it. But let me know if you can or can't. But here we go.
Whilst you were out, we saw Leandro Trossard obviously came in as well. Does that focus your mind about where your position might lie now? There's so much competition on that left-hand side.
No, not really. Being at a massive club like Arsenal, we know there's so much competition. It's always going to be challenging, always going to be difficult to cement your place in the team. But I think it's just an extra push for me. You keep working hard, keep fighting, and hard work pays off. So I just got to keep believing in myself.
Yeah, so that was Emile Smith Rowe speaking after the game against Brentford, and you can watch the full. You can watch that and more of Mikel Arteta's press conferences on the Arsenal Way. I'll leave a link down in the description to that video that you can go and check out. So please go and give that a watch over on the Arsenal Way. But it was very interesting kind of hearing from Smith Rowe and hearing him speak after what has been an incredible amount of time, away from the group and away from starting, hugely far away from the group and far away from starting in the team. And I think it's important to consider. It's important to consider kind of the impact that has on your fitness. It's important to consider the impact that has on your mentality. And I think that it has been a challenge for him mentally to kind of come back from such a period of being really in the team and playing week in, week out in the team. And also in a situation where you're then going from that to playing next to nothing, injury, all of the mental challenges that come with that injury as well. I'm hoping, at least, fingers crossed, that we see an improvement in kind of his confidence and that. But he certainly needs more minutes and more time. And he also spoke about the reaction to what he got in the Champions League, where the fans were absolutely amazingly brilliant. They were fantastic at what they did, and I think that would have given him a real boost. But you can tell, I think, that his confidence has taken a real hit from being at the team for so long, and hopefully he can come back and be that player. But I asked him about the position because I was very interested to hear what he thought, because when he was out, Trossard came in and has taken up and created far more competition on that left-hand side. So would that have changed his view on whether or not he sees himself playing more centrally like he did against Brentford? But as he said, no, he's focusing on lots of positions, and that competition is very natural at Arsenal, and that certainly is the way forwards. Let's go to part 2 and your questions right after this. Okay, let's go back into the chat box, shall we? And for the next 10 or so minutes, we're going to take on as many of these questions as we can. Alex says he definitely sounds a bit down. He's been out for so long. Hopefully, he can get a decent run of games and perform to what we know that he can. Yeah, hopefully he can, because he's hell of a talented player. We know that. We know how talented he is. And hopefully, when he does get into a position where he's playing more regularly and getting more minutes, that confidence will start to flow. And when it does flow, we know that he's incredibly impactful for Arsenal and can create brilliant chances and score brilliant goals. So hopefully we can see that moving forwards. James says, I love Smith Rowe. He's my favourite Arsenal player. Absolutely. Ames says, interesting how he credited Arteta for supporting him mentally. Yeah, that was a really key part. And I think Arteta's support to him is going to be really important. A lot of people have criticised Arteta for not using him or for treating him badly. I don't think he's been treated badly. I think there's an element of kind of protecting him in some senses because he's clearly been affected by the time he spent out, and you want to ease him back into things and give him minutes and chances where you can. Could he be given more minutes? Sure. I think there's an argument that he could be given more minutes, but I'm not sitting here battering the manager because he's not given him those chances, because we've had some really, really important games, and you want to also shield in some ways Smith Rowe from additional scrutiny. Let's go to Maximus says, hey, Tom, since we're having so much discussion regarding Ivan Toney and there are credible sources linking him to us, would you like to do a comparison of him with a level 4/5 high level 4 or 5 strikers available? I mean, when you're available, sure. I mean, I think one of the good things to look at is kind of what we're going up against. And I think when you compare his numbers to someone like Erling Haaland, there is a significant gap. Now, it's highly likely that whoever we sign there's going to be a gap, especially maybe a gap at the beginning until they develop into somebody that can kind of compete with Erling Haaland. But the problem is with a signing like Toney, of course, is that you're signing somebody that's in their prime. You're not necessarily going to see too much of a rise in their numbers overall. Even joining Arsenal, there's not necessarily guaranteed to be a rise. Look at Leandro Trossard. He joined Arsenal in his prime years, and he's putting in probably a very similar output, I would say, from his time at Brighton. He scored goals. He was impactful in the Premier League. And I think he's continued along that same kind of level of form. He maybe has improved slightly more individually working under Arteta, but it's not been transformatively different from what Trossard was showing at Brighton. And that's why we signed him, because he was doing really well at Brighton and he's continued at Arsenal. So it's not a guarantee that just because you're playing with better players that you yourself will be better. And so I think that's why it's much better for Arsenal going to the market and trying to identify a player that can rise to a higher level and Toney and close that gap over a period of time. And so when you look at those differences, like the goal, the non-penalty goal and assist per 90 stats for Toney is 0.55. Haaland's is 1.2. It's more than double. So signing a player with less than half the goal contributions over the same season is not going to close the gap enough for us to City. And Pavel says he is still brilliant. And I'm not discrediting that point of view. He's a very good striker. I think that's maybe what people have misconstrued about my assessment of Toney, is they think this is some kind of attack on Toney. They think this is some kind of criticism of Toney. Toney is a very good forward, but a very good forward for me doesn't cut it. And I think we need to go for higher than that if we are. If he comes to Arsenal, I'll back the guy and hope that he proves me wrong without a shadow of a doubt, and hope that he does. I wouldn't, beyond anything else, I want to be wrong if he joins Arsenal. But I'm just worried that I'm not, and that we would be better off trying to sign somebody else. Saka says, if who's to bet? 80 million. I don't know who that is. You'll have to let me know. They might as well wait until the summer. Maybe it's Toney being auto-corrected. If Toney's costing 80 million, let's assume it's Toney that's been auto-corrected. If Toney cost 80 million, then we might as well wait until the summer and get an Osimhen in the summer for 100 million, the same price as we spent on Declan Rice. says, do we think that we can convert Tomiyasu into a centre-back and look for an attacking fullback like a Frimpong? I don't think you need to convert Tomiyasu into a centre-back, because I think that Tomiyasu already is a centre-back. I think he showed that against Brentford. He shows that consistently when he plays for Japan. I think he is better as a centre-half. He works in smaller spaces. He has less responsibilities going forwards. And I think he can do the things that he's asked to do in that more restricted role that plays in a smaller space really, really well. So I don't think you need to convert him. I think that he already is a centre-half that plays sometimes at fullback, and that is going to be very, very important. Em says, aside from Osimhen, who else is considered world class and that marquee striker missing from Arteta's jigsaw puzzle? I think when people ask me this question, they say name like the player that you would get instead of Tony. As I've always said, I think that you need to wait until the summer. I think that you need to assess the options because there are young players at the moment that are out there that are doing very, very well, that are of the 2021-22 kind of bracket, that are playing exceptionally well, that could be the players to go for in 2024 in that summer window. You've got Sesko, you've got Ferguson. As Clive points out, you've got Santiago Jimenez at Feyenoord, who's done fantastically well at the start of this season as well. There are players out there that could really be the guys to take us forwards and take this club to the next level, and we've got to invest in them. I mean, he's 22 years of age. He's got 24 goals and 38 appearances for Feyenoord. He's exciting. He's technical. He's really good with the ball at his feet. Could that be the guy to take us forwards? Maybe Clive. It could be him. But the thing is, for me, is that I'd much rather invest in the future and invest in a player that I think has got a ceiling that is far higher than Tony, than go for Tony and then be, kind of restricted to what I know that he can already give us, which is nowhere near the level of what we need to get to, in my opinion. More Than a Wheelchair says, don't sleep on Trossard. He's better than Eddie, and Eddie needs to go because he's poor and belongs at an Everton or a Brentford. Tony would be good, but we would have changed our style and crossed the ball a lot more. I mean, I don't think that's in Arsenal's DNA at all, to be a team that just pings the ball into the box for a tall striker. I don't think that's the way forwards for Arsenal. I don't think necessarily Man City have changed their style to deal with having a Haaland who is a lot more threatening in the air. Do they cross a bit more? Maybe, but they still play and score plenty of goals with the ball on the floor. I wager a bet that Haaland scores more goals with the ball at his feet than he does with the ball in the air. Jesus is also still good in the air. Jesus is fantastic at winning those aerial duels. He's scored headers. He's won those duels to set up chances. So I don't think we would change our style necessarily just because a striker comes in. Trossard, is he better than Eddie as a centre forward? I think he's got different characteristics than Eddie. Do I think that Eddie would score the same amount of goals as Tony has without the penalties at Brentford? Probably. I would absolutely bet. And if Nketiah had the same amount of minutes as Tony did at Brentford, I'd bet on him getting around 14 or so goals at Brentford. I don't think that's well beyond what Nketiah is capable of. I think that Eddie Nketiah is more than capable of getting 14 non-penalty goals in a system at a decent team that just channels the ball towards him. And that's what the Brentford system was all about, is getting the ball to Mbeumo and then to Tony and funneling through him to get their goals. And I would bet if that was Nketiah in Tony's position, he would get a very similar amount of goals to Tony in that Brentford team. And Clive agrees, as I agree on looking forward. I think we need to look to the future. We need to look to the ceiling of players and where they can go rather. Now, you think about it, Jesus is 25, 26 now. He's a player that is going to be moving into his prime. And so if you were to tandem Jesus with a different style of forward, but one that's younger, one that will learn, one that's going to grow, one that's going to improve, if that's a Ferguson, if that's a Sesko, if that's a Jimenez, these types of forwards, I think that might be the right way to go with the striking position. McCabe says Jesus is a bit of a havoc creator in the box, but he ain't a finisher's finisher. Again, this whole finishing thing is kind of really lent on. The player that missed the most big chances last season was Erling Haaland. The player that missed the most big chances this season is Erling Haaland. The player that missed the most big chances in 22-23 was Harry Kane. And these two players are two of the best quote-unquote finishers that we've ever had in the Premier League. The difference is the teams they played for have been creating a lot of big chances. So they miss more big chances. And if Arsenal can get their system into a refined form that we can create far more big chances, no one will be talking about Jesus' finishing because he will be scoring plenty of goals. If we can sort out the way in which we create and the frequency to which we create and improve that, we aren't going to be talking about Jesus' finishing and the fact that we need a better finisher coming in, because if we create more, he'll score more. You think about that chance we created for him against Man United. Brilliant, brilliant goal. You think about the goals that he scored against Leicester last season, that little chip from outside on the left-hand side, round the keeper and into the top right-hand corner. You think about the goals that he scored just one touch, the goal he scored against PSV the other week. Get him into positions. The guy can score goals. There's no doubt in my mind that Jesus is one of the best goal scorers in the Premier League and all-round centre forwards. But we need to create more for him because, if he has 3 chances and doesn't score from them, then we talk about his finishing. But if he has 6 chances and scores 1, maybe 2, we're not talking about his finishing, because big players do miss big chances, and that's why the record stands with Haaland and Kane in the last few seasons. It's all about chance frequency, and that's, for me, is the biggest problem, because we're 12th. We're 12th in the league for big chances created. That has to be better. That has to improve. Michael says, not being sarcastic, but then shouldn't we be more effective and efficient when shooting, as we don't create as many chances like Man City do? No, is the answer. I mean, it's yes and no, because yes, you want us to be better at finishing, sure. But the expectations around finishing I think, are a bit hyperbolic. The expectations around chance creation are not. Arsenal have, think about the quality forwards that are in the Premier League, right? Think about how many quality forwards are in the Premier League. There's loads. You go down the league and you've got some amazing forwards. Man City have got Erling Haaland and Julian Alvarez. You think about Liverpool with Salah and Nunez and Jota and Gakpo. You think about Brighton with Ferguson, and now Welbeck's been brilliant for Brighton so far. Manchester United have invested in Højlund, and they've got Marcus Rashford. 2 players, again, are known for scoring goals. You go down the league further and you look at some of the other teams like Aston Villa, and they've got Ollie Watkins. We talk about Brentford with Tony. We talk about even Chelsea have invested a hell of a lot of money in strikers. It's not going too well, and they've missed massive amounts of big chances. Huge. And the data that they've got there is suggesting they should be doing better. Spurs, Heung-min Son, James Maddison, Kulusevski, of course, as well there. And Newcastle United now have got some brilliant forwards in Wilson and Isak, who's done fantastically well. Arsenal are 8th in the league for big chances converted, and for shot conversion, we are 8th. And when you're in a Premier League that is full of top teams that are creating lots of chances and that have got big strikers, 8th for shot conversion, it's not really, really bad because of how many good players that there are. And you got to also think that there are teams that are not creating as many, but they're taking the chances that they get. 12th for big chances created is a problem for a team like Arsenal, because Arsenal should dominate the ball for the majority of games that they play. And because they dominate the ball for the majority of games they play, there should be an expectation that we create a lot more chances, but we're not doing that. So that is why that when we're talking about shot efficiency and shot conversion being a problem, if you look at the context of the Premier League, it's not actually that damaging. It's not actually that concerning because of how much quality there is in terms of centre forwards and forwards in general in all of the teams in the top half of the Premier League, in the top half of the Premier League. But from a perspective of shot creation and big chances creating actions, Arsenal should be way higher than 12th because of the amount we dominate games, because of the attacking players that we've got in the team, because of the creativity that we've got in the team, because the way we've invested in another attacking midfielder to replace Granit Xhaka. We should be higher up that shot, big chance created table because of the type of team that we are. So yes, sure, we can be a bit concerned that we're not taking as the chances that we do create. But I'm sorry, it is a much, much greater concern that a team like Arsenal, with the philosophy that we have, the style of play that we have, and the amount that we dominate games, that we are 12th for big chances created. So I hope that makes sense, because that's why it should be far more of a concern to you about the frequency of big chances than it is the amount of chances that we're actually taking. M says, so whose fault is it for a lack of shot creation and big chances created? I think there is something to be said about the way in which Kai Havertz has come into the team and the fact in which we are kind of still evolving in this new system under Arteta. Arteta's wanted to change things this season. We started off with the season with Thomas Partey playing right back, with Declan Rice coming into the side, Xhaka leaving. Thomas Partey's been out for quite a long period. We started the season without Jesus as well. We then have other injuries like Martinelli and Trossard getting injured. Timber's gone. We trained all pre-season with Timber in the team and Timber and what he was going to do, and we were adjusting to Timber's presence in the back four, and now he's gone. And all that preparation in pre-season with such an important player in the back four gone, you then got to change things again through when the season's already underway. And so I think that a lot of kind of the chaos of losing players, the chaos of the system having to change, because we needed to change, because last season we didn't get to where we wanted to be. We wanted to win the league. We wanted to be more dominant. We didn't win games by enough goals, and we had to evolve. People said that they wanted to stick with the same back four and stick with the same system that was doing so well and got us to where we got last season. And I get that view, but you've also got to consider that what we did last season didn't get us to where you wanted us to be. And so Arteta wants us to get to a position where we want to be, which is winning titles and dominating teams and winning games by bigger scorelines. And to do that, you have to change. To do that, you've got to evolve. And so because of that, we've tried to do that. But there's been a lot of chaos, a lot of upheaval, a lot of changes, and we're still learning. The good thing is whilst we're still learning and evolving, we're not losing. Yes, we've dropped a couple of points. Yes, we should have won those games in which we dropped a couple of points. But we're still learning and we're not losing. And that's really important, that we're up there, we're competing, we've still got a good record, we're progressing in Europe, we're looking good, there's great signs, there's lots of positivity. And we know the reasons. It's not stumped us why we're not doing maybe more than we can. We know what the reasons are. The data tells us that. So we know where we're going wrong. We know what needs to change. And hopefully, well, I'm almost sure that they know that as well. And they'll be putting strategy into place to try and help that. Hopefully players return soon. And hopefully we get into a position where we're going to be a much more competitive team. Anyway, thank you so much, everybody, for listening. I've got to shoot because we're going to be doing our press conference blog. Do hop over to football.london and follow the press conference live blog. We'll be hearing from Mikel Arteta from London Colney to hear what he's got to say about all the latest team news ahead of the game against Bournemouth tomorrow. I'm going to be travelling down to the South Coast then as well. But thank you to everybody that's tuned in. Really appreciate your time. Drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. And as always, up the Arsenal.